Welcome back to the next installment of Water Witch Wednesdays. I am Anwen, the Water Witch, and today we're going to be talking about wells, but specifically wells in the astral realm, or wells as portals to the astral realm. So, as you guys have probably guessed, or if you followed me for a little while, or read my blogs, or heard me talk, or any of my lectures, I'm really obsessed with sacred and holy wells throughout the entire world, but mostly focused on Western European, specifically Britain and Wales and that area. But it expands more than that because I'm really interested in some of the Roman practices and some of the different things that surround well practices worldwide. And I don't live in the UK, so I can only visit some of these holy sacred wells when I'm there every few years. And otherwise, I try and find springs or wells that are local to where I'm at, and I work with those. So, springs and wells as portals. So, in folklore and mythology, there is a lot of connection to the other world through fountains or springs or wells. And in some stories and folklore, the well itself actually speaks to the main character in the tale. And it takes on its own form. So it has its own spirit and it therefore can speak. And so it's an entity. In other cases, you just happen to see a lot of encounters at wells or fountains with fairy women or otherworldly beings. And this kind of speaks a little bit to them as being liminal spaces or places where you can access the other world or where the other world can have access to ours. Of course, there's a lot of different liminal spaces, and that's a completely different video. But in this case, wells or fountains or springs can be these liminal spaces, not only because of their connection to history and folklore and mythology with some of these tales and stories, but also because if you've ever looked at a spring, specifically like one in Florida, Blue Springs is a really good example. It's a really popular spring down in Florida. And why it's not considered sacred, at least not in a modern context, it is this really beautiful place, and it's there's an otherworldly energy about it, even with all the tourist traps and stuff like that. So if you look at it, it's this clear, beautiful water that just kind of is, oh man, it's just so crystal clear. You could see everything. And then below that, of course, the surface, is where the water then meets the earth. And that is this rocky, muddy formation. And then you see like a big hole in the kind of the center, and then it gets darker and it goes down. And there's been people that have that are very good at scuba diving, and they go down into these things and they explore the different caves and see what's down there. And so this is a physical entrance to the underworld, of course, a very watery one. And so these can also be used in visualizations, meditations, and journey work as portals to the other world. Now, this is a little bit silly, but I'm going to bring it up because I think it had a little bit of a valid point. I really love watching Ancient Aliens. I love conspiracy theories. I think it's hilarious. It's one of those, I'm not in a great mood today, so I'm going to just watch this really funny show. And so I like watching it for entertainment purposes, okay? And in one of these episodes, they had an episode about the Loch Ness Monster or Ogopogo, or these very Nessie-like creatures that were using, the theory was that aliens, because of course everything's aliens, were using like Loch Ness or other lakes as portals. And it's basically we're saying that they were alien creatures and that they were portaling into this world and etc. etc. So I I don't know. I'm just going to leave that for you to decide. But the point is even if these alien conspiracy theories are right or not or whatever, it doesn't matter. The point is that they picked up on the fact that these water bodies could be used as portals. Something though that I do possibly think is right about this particular episode is that, you know, they thought that Nessie was using this as a portal from Earth to space or whatever. But it kind of led me to think, like, hey, wait a second. We have sightings of Nessie here and there, and we have sightings of all these otherworldly creatures and sea monsters and etc. But then we go searching for them and we can't find them. So I thought to myself, well, wow, what if Loch Ness was a portal, but not to space or aliens or whatever that show wanted to talk about, but to the other world? And what if Nessie was a creature of the other world that could go back and forth between the physical and the spiritual realms? And so that kind of ties into what we're going to talk about as using these wells as portals or access to the other world. So that's one little thing there. Now, let's talk about Melusine, because you know I love to talk about her. I don't think I've done a video recently where I haven't mentioned her. So Melusine, in her story, in one of the versions, she appears to Raymondine when he is distraught and is in a trance-like state. He has accidentally killed his uncle who he loved. It was an accident in the story. It was not supposed to happen. He was aiming for a boar and he accidentally killed his uncle. So he's riding on this horse through the forest, distraught. And if anybody has ever been in that really distraught place where maybe you're having a lot of anxiety or depression or fear or sadness or whatever, and these feelings like just overtake you, and you kind of go into like robot or drone mode. That's kind of what I feel that Raymondine was feeling or experiencing when he was going through the forest. And so this puts him in an altered state of consciousness. It puts him in this place where he's not thinking with his conscious mind, and so he's just like on autopilot, going on his horse through the forest. And he comes across a fount, and founts, springs, and wells are often used interchangeably. They're generally used to describe fresh water that springs up from the earth and is either in a fountain or in a basin like a well, or more of a natural shape like Blue Springs or something like that. So these kind of all fall within this same watery archetype, I guess we could call it. And there is where he meets Melusine, and he meets her at this fount. She's there with her three sisters, and they kind of tease him and giggle a little bit, like, haha, how could you go past us and not see us? So I think in this particular case, it alludes to the fact that he was in this altered state of consciousness. And we already know that there were some very otherworldly things going on with the larger-than-life boar that he had accidentally killed. His uncle. He killed his uncle when he was trying to kill this otherworldly boar that was like really large, larger-than-life type thing. So we already know that there's a lot of like liminal things going on. Now he's in an altered state of consciousness on autopilot through the forest in just massive states of grief. And there appears this beautiful woman. And like most humans, when we get this sign from the other world or contact from the other world, we kind of are just like, oh, that's not real. And so he kind of has that same reaction where he's kind of just like taken aback, like, what? They tease him about how, how could he miss these three beautiful girls in the forest and et cetera, et cetera. So anyways, I could keep going on with the story, but the point that I wanted to make here was that he was in an altered state of consciousness near this fount or well, and this is where this otherworldly fairy dragon woman uh, appears to him. And she could have appeared to him anywhere. She could have appeared to him after the boar was, after he killed his uncle, trying to kill the boar instead. She could have appeared to him in the forest. She could have come in the form of a horse. She could have done many different things. She could have even come in her dragon form, but she didn't. She came to him as a beautiful woman at a fount. In the middle of the woods. And we know that this is not like a traditional fountain, because it's in the, medieval-ish era or before, and it's in the middle of the woods. So there wouldn't have been this random fountain, this beautiful three-tiered fountain in the middle of the woods. So what we can assume logically is that this is a natural spring, or a spring that has kind of bubbled up and is making maybe probably like a bubbly type noise. You know what I'm talking about, with the water kind of bubbling up on the surface, and maybe it has a little bit of spray, but my understanding is that this is not a classic three-tiered fountain that you would see at the mall or whatever. This is more of that natural spring that is coming up. So it also then kind of alludes to the fact that she used this, or she perhaps comes from the underworld through the fount. We know later on in her story that she is deeply connected to water, and that she has to bathe in solitude once a week, every Saturday. And so we know that there's this deep connection with her, and that she is this otherworldly, watery creature. Now, there's other tales and such of wells, and the Chalice Well has a lot of lore surrounding it. And there's a being that floats around in the Chalice Well Gardens, the Lady in White, or the Lady of Avalon. And so it's possible, and we know that she is also connected to this body of water. Across the street we have the White Well, or the White Spring, and we know that this is connected to another fairy being, Gwyneth Nith. So we keep getting these connections of these fairy or spirit beings that are connected to these bodies of water. And I think that they're portals. I do. If you read the tales and you read between the lines, you see that there are these deep connections, and you don't get A without B. And why is this fountain, or this spring, or this connection to this well always present in these types of stories? And it's because they're portals. So taking that and flipping it around, we as magical people, witches, pagans, whatever you want to call yourself, it doesn't matter, can then use these as portals to also get back to the other world, or the fairy realms, or the watery fairy realms, etc. So let's quickly talk about gazing at the surface of a placid lake, or a very still lake. This mirrors a mirror. And we also know that mirrors can be used as portals. There's tons of books on that. That's a completely different video. I'm not going to talk about that, but they can be used as portals. And if you think about a lake and the way that the sun or the moon reflect off of those still waters, we see it has a mirror connection, and it mirrors the above. And so again, we have this type of thing that we could use as a portal, in the similar way that we could use a mirror as a portal. But it goes deeper than that with water, like always, because the water, these surfaces, whether it's the surface of a lake or it's actually just a spring, we only see that surface bit, and so it really alludes to there being a deeper connection to the earth, especially in cases of springs where they spring up from the different aquifers, and we have this unknown energy that's coming from the depths of the earth with the water, and we don't know a lot about it, but the other world and the underworld and these type of things, they're often used interchangeably to describe the astral realm or the other realm. I like to use otherworld because I think it's very broad and it encompasses things like Hades and Valhalla and Avalon and that kind of thing. And I also believe that these are all different names for the same place or names for different places within the other world, which is why I like to use otherworld. Because there's many people that work with Avalon and there's many people that work with Valhalla, and they'll give you completely different answers to the same questions on what they are, but it is known they are connected to and are part of the other world. I guess it's kind of the difference between the UK and the United States. That's how I like to see it. They're in the astral realm, but they're different locations within the astral realm. And so you can use then these wells or glassy water bodies to then access the other world. And so think about in a vision journey or meditation or any type of maybe journey work that you're doing, that you are in a meditation and you go through the process to access the other world, and you detach from your body, your astral body detaches, and you go into the other realms, the other world, the astral realms, and you interact with the beings there. You can do this one way by doing a vision journey or a visualization where you go to a sacred well, a lake, a random well, or a pool of water that may be connected to a spring within the forest of the astral realms. And then you can use this portal to gaze into it and scry. They do a lot of that in North Sea, where the seers go down to the well and then they look into it and peer into it, and then images come back. And so it's a connection, kind of like a telephone or internet connection, and putting it in a modern context, to the other world, where these images come up onto the surface of the well in your meditation. And then you're able to connect with and communicate with the other world in this way. Now, I have done meditations where I'm working with specific fairy beings, and I'm going to keep it a little broad here because I don't like to tell specifics of some of my practice, because there is value in keeping silent in different for different practices, for different things. There's also another thing where you can put things out to then project them. But in this case, I kind of like to keep things to myself. So I'm just going to keep it broad. I work with fairy women that are usually connected to water. And I will often go into a vision journey where I take the same steps to get into the other world. Sometimes it's through a forest, and sometimes it is through across water. But there's also times where I might go through the forest and then find a well or a pool of water or spring in these forest areas. Oftentimes they are accompanied by a host of fairy-like beings. It could be during a night of revelry when they're dancing. Fill in the blank. I'm sure you can see the visualization here. And I reach this pool, and it's usually lit up with candles or something like that. And then I can enter the other world, or the fairy beings that attend this particular pool will then often show images on the actual surface of the water. So it goes both ways. Images can be used like still frames on the glassy surface, or they can play more like a movie reel where you see actual images and actions being taken place. Other times, though, they want to communicate, or there is another need for me to then go deeper into the other world and to access the watery realms. And so then I can enter the pool and dive down and swim into the other world that way. I know that this is used a lot by different people with things like lakes or the ocean, or just meeting at the shore, where the waves of the ocean meet the beach and then emerging into the water and going that way. So it doesn't have to be just a well that is being used as a portal. It could be really any type of water. So the last thing then, as far as wells and portals go, is I'd like to talk about actual physical wells in this world and using them as portals. Now, down in Cornwall, there is a well that is considered a dreaming well. And it actually has a seat where you're supposed to go and sit or lay and fall asleep and then have these connections with the other world. So this is a way to use a physical well location as a portal, as using it to dream. The other thing that you can do is go to a physical well location and go into a trance or an altered state of consciousness. Let your spirit detach from your body, however you do it, whether that's complete detaching or whether that's through remote viewing or astral travel or whatever. It doesn't matter. You can adapt this to however you practice. And then your spirit body can then enter the physical location while you are there, and then dive down into the waters and enter the other world that way as well. I mean, there really isn't a wrong way to do it. It's just really kind of how you feel comfortable and how you can interact with the other world and what your body of water is. For another video, again, I often promote focusing on a local body of water. You know that I love my Glastonbury so much. I love my Chalice Well, but like I said, I only get to visit every few years. So it's really important that I establish a practice locally. And I actually have a red spring about 20 minutes from my house, 20-minute drive. I might have, oh, here we go. I have some water from it right here. And you can see some of the rust right there in the bottle. It's really awesome. And so this water comes from there, and it's very much like the Chalice Well, where it leaves that red, iron, rusty, slimy residue everywhere. And so I like to focus on that. So what I can do is I can visit that spring and do a meditation right there at the base of the actual well itself. Or if I can't make it out that day, what I can do from here, from this location, is now that I visited it and I understand it and I'm connected with the actual body of water and the spirits there, I can go ahead through the astral realm or astral travel, detach from my body and visit the well. So I'm going to go ahead and end because my videos tend to be very long and I tend to ramble a lot and repeat myself. So I just want to end with this. If you have a local body of water that you work with on a regular basis, try diving into it when you are in an altered state of consciousness and visiting the astral realm that way. See if it's different than the usual places that you visit in the astral realm. See if there's creatures that live there, fairy beings, and connect with the actual body of water through the astral realm. If you don't, then try doing vision journeys to more popular places like the Chalice Well or the White Spring or Bridget's Well in Ireland, and visiting the actual well itself, and then having your spirit dive into the actual well itself and access the other world that way. And again, see how that differs from your usual vision journeys or meditations. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and end for today, and I hope that you enjoy this video. Let me know if you have any questions or comments, or if I didn't make sense. You can just post them down there in the comment section. Also, if you have any video topics that you would like me to speak about, also please post them in the video in the comment section below, and I will see what I can do. Have a wonderful watery Wednesday, Water Witches. See you next time. Bye.